Hi everybody, welcome to the November Supper Club. We hope you're having a great time and got off to a good start in October. To remind you, if you haven't thought about it for a while, we're working off of this book, 12 Steps to a Compassionate Life, by Karen Armstrong. It's this book we used last summer. And last time, October, our first time, we did kind of a general overview of compassion and where the word comes from, and got you thinking about it in general terms. And so now, as the book suggests, there's 12 steps here. We won't do all of them, of course, over the course of this year, but we thought we'd pick and choose. And today we would start with what's in the book, step number 2, which is look at your own world. This is Karen's suggestion to step back with a little, take the passion out, take the the lens that you might see the world through, and step back and look at things in a new way. Which is tough stuff, to see things in a new way and to be honest with ourselves.
And the whole move at this point is now to move away from sort of the analytical thinking about what compassion is to figuring out how do we actually do this? How are we compassionate? That's much harder. So as we move through these next few supper clubs and these steps, the whole goal is to bring us out of our thinking mode a little bit into our heart mode or our acting mode. So what she suggests to begin is to think about, as we look at our world, to think about the sort of concentric circles of our world. And she begins with family, to say the best place to start is first with yourself and then with your family. And to think about how your family is a compassionate family. Like, do you have a member of your family that's sort of a black sheep, or do you have someone in your family that you don't talk about? And how is that person treated? Do you have someone in your family who is perpetually ill or has a chronic disease? And how is compassion actually practiced around your dinner table, your conversations with each other? And in your smaller but larger family of birth.
Which can often be the hardest of the circles that we're going to talk about, because these are the folks that mean so much to us, and we're in relationship with them day in and day out.
Sometimes they bother us, so the whole, it gets very practical very quickly of how we practice compassion, even with people who annoy us or.
I remember her making the suggestion of turning your family into a school of compassion. This is really where you can learn. You're going every day. You're faced with, my kids get up and they want something from me. And can I be this open-hearted, compassionate dad? And watch where I can't. Watch the honesty, the self-reflection.
So that's the first circle.
Yeah. Then out of that, then a lot of us head off to work after that. So there's the level of community. Which includes our work life. It includes the people, maybe you go to lunch during the day, and how do you interact with the person behind the counter. So the people at work, it's a very interesting thing to think about what kind of systems are in place, whose voice gets heard.
If you're not going off to a job, it's really no different. It still is, who is it that if you're a stay-at-home parent, the folks you work with, the teachers that you interact with for your kids' school, all of those kinds of things. So the work really encompasses the grocery store, going to church maybe on Sundays, all of the places where you meet other human beings on your journey through the week.
I was thinking about what our staff might say about what kind of compassion. At a church you would expect it to be just oozing from us. We would have everyone but we have the same challenges. We have the same financial challenges, personnel issues. And
personality differences, all that stuff. So.
So compassion sounds, I guess is the point that in both of these, compassion sounds great in the abstract and pretty simple to just, be nice to people. It really gets tough when you are dealing with the people you work with day in and day out.
And faced with real human beings, face to face. So. And then the nation would be the third circle. So to move out of your own community, the smaller community in which you live, and to reflect and think about how the United States of America is a compassionate nation. We think we are. Our story is that we are, and certainly in many ways we're a very compassionate nation. Certainly if you put us up against other nations, either modern ones or ancient ones. We could be said to be compassionate, and yet we all know that there are ways in which the things that are the decisions that we make as a nation, our foreign policy, that those things affect other nations and affect other people. And how in the world do you practice compassion at a national level? With you're still trying to balance things like security and finance and prosperity, and keep all of those things for our nation. How is it? Where do you even begin that discussion? It's a big one.
Well, I remember I heard on the radio this morning that today is the 125th anniversary of the dedication of the Statue of Liberty. So here's this enormous symbol of compassion for our country. To bring your tide. I forget the quote from the one, but bring your tired, your weary, your huddled masses, and yet in reality, how difficult this is when we start talking about immigration policy. And so all of our systems, our healthcare system, our penal system, all these things, how do these show compassion to them?
Well, and currently the Wall Street protests, are certainly an example of at least some people rising up or sitting down, as it were, to say that things are not even close to being just or compassionate, or somehow that those who have forgotten how to feel for and suffer with and do anything to change the situation of those who are without. So
lots to discuss there, for sure. In fact, that's one of the last things for us to say is that this can be really overwhelming stuff, and I think we mentioned this last time. But particularly as you now look at family, community, and the nation. You look at all of this and you start breathing deep. You start going, and one bit of advice is to just talk to, even in your group, talk about where are the areas where you feel called to focus, where are the parts in your life where you feel like you can make a difference, and celebrate those and focus on those.
And don't have compassion fatigue right out of the gate. Don't let it be so overwhelming that you can't move. You're too tired to do anything about it. There's a book called The Moses of Ravna, which I read many years ago. I've preached on it before, but it's basically a story of a man who ended up saving the lives of many, many Jews during the Holocaust through his work. And historically after it was over, and an author wanted him to tell his story, the author basically said, tell me why you did what you did. It was risky, it was dangerous, why did you do it? And he told the author that when he was a child, he used to take walks with his mom. They would walk to school 20 minutes every day, and they played a game, and it was sort of a, Hans, what will you do kind of game, and that she would point out things about children hurting other children, and they would, he would give her an answer and say, I think I would do this, and I would tell that person not to bully that person, or whatever it was. And he said that when the Holocaust began to unfold, he could hear his mother's voice in his head saying, Hans, what will you do? And he had to do something. So it's as simple and as complicated as that. So whether maybe for your discussion with one another, either choose the circle of family or the circle of community or the circle of nation, and begin with one of those, and talk about, practically, how do you make compassion, how do you practice compassion, like this little boy was able to do with his mother's voice years later in his head.
The first two, the family and community, are largely a self-reflection kind of piece, or not entirely, but somewhat. And the third one with nation is awfully easy to talk about, them and blame. And so particularly with that one, practice compassion together as you talk, because you may hear views other than your own, and that's a wonderful thing if we can hold each other in that compassion as we talk. So
have a great month, and hope you've had a wonderful supper club tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.